lives, observing them, bugging their phones, spying on them, arresting and interrogating them. An article on historycollection.co notes the following, quote, "The Stasi would break into a suspect's house while they were out and place tiny microphones everywhere to eke out every word that was uttered in the house. Every telephone call would be monitored too. Also, truly bizarre practices such as voyeuristic pinhole cameras in hotel rooms and taking skin and sweat samples from interrogation rooms were done." Their sinister practices reached a peak with Zersetzung, which means roughly translated decomposition. Wanting to find a way to destroy dissent movements with little physical tactics, they resorted to things like, quote, "regularly spreading rumors that certain people within opposition groups were actually in their employment." Also, they employed brutal psychological tactics like moving furniture around, resetting alarms, and sending unannounced packages to homes and apartments. This psychological manipulation, also known as gaslighting, can be defined as manipulation by psychological means to make one question their own sanity. And indeed it worked, with post-reunification reports suggesting that around 10,000 were targeted in this way, with half permanently damaged. Also, inoffizielle Mitarbeiter, or unofficial collaborators, were used. These were normal civilians that were thrown a bone for spying on neighbors and close friends. They were generally part of groups or organizations that regular Stasi operatives had a hard time infiltrating. Although numbers vary on just how many there were, hundreds of thousands over the course of the DDR's history were employed. As previously mentioned, the scope of their operations went outside East Germany with the HVA. Planning the means to operate clandestinely and acquire good intel on foreign leaders and countries, the Stasi were on par with the KGB in their abilities. It's estimated that roughly 4,000 were employed, with a similar number within their sphere of influence. Some high-profile Stasi agents include successful businesswoman and hotel manager Ute Felgner, deputy head of the Soviet section of the West German intelligence agency Gabriele Gast, and personal secretary to Chancellor Willy Brandt of West Germany Günther Guillaume. In regards to their international operations, the HVA was very prolific and aided secret police organizations such as those in Cuba, Mozambique, and Ethiopia. They channeled money to neo-Nazi groups in West Germany to try and destabilize their regime. They operated brothels to try and procure information out of high-ranking generals and business people. And in the most unreal example, they executed Operation Denver. This was a deliberate misinformation smear campaign to convince people that the U.S. actually created HIV/AIDS as a biological weapon. Although completely untrue, this conspiracy theory still floats around today, and millions still believe it to be true. Ultimately, the collapse of the Soviet Union saw the collapse of East Germany and the Stasi. They tried to burn sensitive files at the headquarters in Berlin shortly after the wall fell, but on January 15, 1990, a large mob of protesters overpowered the police guarding the building and stormed it to prevent files from being lost. After reunification, a new organization abbreviated the BSTU was tasked with making a decision on how to proceed with the enormous collection. They ultimately ruled that people could request to see their own files. According to The Guardian, roughly 2.75 million people between 1991 and 2011 requested access to their files. They could read and see who ratted on them and gave information. This decision would ruin marriages, friendships, and result in many people being publicly ostracized and banned from the workforce. Also, incriminating evidence could be used against ex-Stasi to try and convict them for heinous crimes. Many Stasi hunters formed to do this.